really bored with this tournament as he's yawning here at 8-2. The opponent here is Joe Russell playing Scapeshift, much more normalized deck that we've seen quite a bit of, though not as much recently in Modern. But both these players 8-2, a Copperline Gorge into a Birds of Paradise is where we will begin things here for Kirkwood. I guess buckle up, because I don't really know what's going to happen here from this Ascendancy gift stack.
Yeah, this should be enjoyable for everyone.
I've got like a Faithless Looting, 3 Path Exiles, 2 Life in the Loams, then Barrel Rights, a Sphinx's Revelation because sure, and a Lightning Bolt killing a Birds of Paradise. You have to imagine these mana creatures and Birds of Paradise and Sylvan Caryatid pretty important in this deck. Sacred Foundry land there for Kirkwood as Russell's going to sacrifice a Misty Rainforest. Scapeshift, you a fan?
You know, my initial reaction for matchups like this, where you have a few counter spells, so you can control what your opponent's doing and then just win the game, and your opponent doesn't have a whole lot of ways to disrupt you. Yeah, pretty big fan.
Yeah.
And it's still amazing to me after all the different decks that we saw yesterday. We go into a feature match today, just 2 decks we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, yeah. That's this format. So Scapeshift and I, we have a personal beef.
Is it a love-hate relationship or just a hate-hate
For
relationship?
me, it's hate-hate.
Okay.
So in these decks that have, they're named after their namesake card, Tooth and Nail,
Sure.
Scapeshift, Dragonstorm, I don't ever draw the card.
Okay.
So I don't get along with decks like that, which is a completely irrational and unreasonable thing to say. But I don't know about you. I never draw Scapeshift.
Well, I would think in a deck that has Serum Visions and Remands and Cryptic Commands, you can draw a lot of extra cards, look at a lot of cards in your deck and find those cards. But, sometimes variance gets you.
Yeah, I would agree that you should be able to find those cards. Yeah. We don't get along. I never drew Dragonstorm. You're someone who won Nationals with Tooth and Nail in your deck. Must be nice to draw it.
Yeah, that deck was awesome because you didn't have to draw the Tooth and Nail.
Yeah, that deck was just very good.
But it also had Skull Clamp, so you almost always drew the Tooth and Nail.
not a bad card to have in your deck to make sure you draw something good. Misty Rainforest here, an attack from the Sakura Tri-Belter. Looks like Joe Russell's going to try to get Kirkwood down to at least 18.
Can you imagine? Hey, I want 2 more cards in my hand. I'll just pay 1 mana.
No, I can't imagine that, actually. That would be a ridiculous thing to have take place. Why would they ever have something like that?
Well, that was the world I was living in at the time.
Oh. Was everyone else living in this world?
Not everyone, no.
People were doing things like not casting Skull Clamp.
People enjoy living in their own worlds.
That's true. Hey, the great thing about Magic is you can play whatever you want.
Yep. And we've seen it all day yesterday, and we're going to see it all day today.
A Misty Rainforest here for Kirkwood. So, for Scott, he's doing some boring stuff right now. He's playing some lands. He's kind of hiding what he's doing. If Joe hasn't seen Scott this weekend, he's probably got no idea what's going on.
Sure, he's going to be reluctant to just try to combo off without counterspell backup.
Yeah.
You look at all the different colors on the other side of the table, and you think, oh, my opponent could have just about anything here.
Yeah, I've got Sacred Foundry, Breeding Pool, Copperline Gorge, and a Misty Rainforest. Got no idea what's going on. What's the worst that could happen is here's a Search for Tomorrow. Kirkwood might have a response here to the Search for Tomorrow. He's certainly thinking about it. And now he will crack a Misty Rainforest. So, we'll see what land Scott wants to get. He'll go with a basic island.
And we might see that Gifts Ungiven package here.
Yeah, again, this Gifts Ungiven package is a little wonky. A couple different routes he can go. Got 2 Fate Stitchers, an Iona, Shield of Emeria, an Elishnorn, and Grand Cenobite. There is 1 Unburial Rights, a Snapcaster Mage, a Sphinx's Revelation. I can't wait to see what he's going to find. Oh, there's a Life in the Lump, sure.
Yep.
Why not?
The Royal Sampler.
Yes. What can't this deck do? Oh, Lumbering Falls, Simic Growth Chamber, Snapcaster Mage.
Well, Scott's going to have to decide on 4 of these. He can't just pull out 8 cards.
Well, can't he? We should allow that for him. I'm not even going to try to guess. I'm just going to let him sift through here.
Yeah, I mean, with decks that you haven't seen before that are off the radar, Sometimes it's just fun to be along for the ride.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what the Lumbering Falls even does, so this makes it even better for me. All right, the easy split. Faithless Looting, Fate Stitcher, Life in the Loam, and a Simic Growth Chamber.
And like you said, if Joe wasn't 100% sure what he was playing against before, this should give him some indication. But he might still be, he still might be a little confused about what's going on here.
Yeah, I'll tell you this much, I'm confused. Now, Joe is taking a look at Fate Stitcher, so for those of you unfamiliar with that one, because you probably know the rest of the cards, it has Unearth for a single blue, can tap and untap something. Unearth, of course, will give something haste, so it's key with the Jeskai Ascendancy portion of the deck. But even if I were Joe right now, first of all, I wouldn't know what's going on. Second of all, I would have no clue how to split this.
Sure, the Fate Stitcher is critical when you're going off with the Ascendancy to continue untapping your lands to be able to keep playing spells.
Yes, but there's no Ascendancy involved yet.
Not yet.
Now, if I see a Fate Stitcher for my opponent, then I know that a Jeskai Ascendancy is in their deck, but I have no idea what's going on with this Life in the Loam, this Faithless Looting, or this Growth Chamber. So, it looks like Faithless Looting and Simic Growth Chamber are going to go away. Fate Stitcher and Life in the Loam are going to go in hand. And now Search for Tomorrow will resolve. Basic Island is the weapon of choice. And now Joe will shuffle his deck after searching for a land.
And we'll see if the Secure Tribe Elder wants to get a little frisky.
It's been out there for a little bit.
He wants to get his. Get him, Joe.
Is it Charm? Scape Shift in hand. Remand as well. So plenty of counter magic.
Yep, a Cryptic Command in there.
Counter magic's certainly not the issue.
And I joke about attacking with the Secure Tribe Elder, but it would be silly to send it in here.
You think so?
Well, if you're just going to win with the Scape Shift.
Sure.
And you just figured out that your opponent's playing the Ascendancy combo, where they might only be attacking with one large pumped creature.
Okay, yeah, then hang back.
Then leaving it back is just prudent.
Okay, that's actually true. Makes sense. Here's 4 mana. Hardcast Fate Stitcher. I like to call this very remandable. I would have some interest in remanding this. Joe going to very quickly sacrifice a fetch land, search up a land here. Going to go with a basic island. And I think that zombie wizard is going to be heading back to Kirkwood's hand. And Joe's deck, the more straightforward of the two. We've seen Scape Shift over the years. Just counter some stuff. Hang on long enough to be able to cast the game-winning spell. Draw a card here.
And Joe is very close to having the requisite number of lands there.
Yeah, at this stage, only needs 7. There's a Flooded Strand. And now we're going to head back Joe's way. He's going to sacrifice this Secure Tribe Elder on the end step, get a land out of his deck. And it looks like to me he only needs 1 more.
Yep.
He's got 6. So if he gets 1 more, he can Scape Shift. He gets 6 mountains and a Valakut. And that's 18 damage. He's got some redraws available here because he does have an Izzet Charm that he can use to draw 2 and discard 2 if he wants to get a little aggressive with it.
Well, I believe he has another Journey in his hand.
Oh, well, if that's the case, it makes it even easier.
Yeah, he could just cast it, get the land, cast the Scape Shift, win the game.
I think he may have picked up a copy of Anticipate for the turn. Yeah, the hand right now, a couple Cryptics, an Izzet Charm, a Search for Tomorrow, and an Anticipate. So no Search for Tomorrow, and he just is going to pass the turn back. He's going to leave up Cryptic Command. And also, I actually kind of like this play because Cryptic Command is like the ultimate safety net.
Yep.
In case anything goes wrong.
It does it all.
Yeah. A silly Magic card. Hallowed Fountain here from Kirkwood. Looks like Fate Stitcher may have been the draw again. So does Kirkwood have any way to work himself through this? Taking a look at the deck, let's see if there's any counter magic here. He's got 2 Is It Charms of his own, but not much else outside of that.
He has a lot of cards in his hand here, and he's staring at a Valakut on the other side of the table, so he knows it's time to do something.
He disagrees. He's just going to pass the turn. What do you think about that? Here's to anticipate. It's time to do something. Yeah, like say go. Search for tomorrow within those cards. Joe has found a card that he's happy with. The rest go to the bottom of the deck. And now he'll draw a card for the turn. Another copy of Anticipate. This might be Secure Tribelder. Just to figure out how he wants to tap for it. There it is. And just pass the turn back. Flooded Strand here from Kirkwood. I do like the patience being established here by Joe Russell. He's not in much of a rush. He's in a good position. Doesn't have to do anything too crazy.
Yep, no mistakes.
Yep. Basic planes. Well, make sure I get this right. Snow-covered planes. Because he has gifts Ungiven in his deck.
Different names.
Yep.
And he's casting that Sphinx's Revelation.
Let's gas up. 3 cards, 3 life. So, in reality, I actually don't think this card matters at all.
No, it still leaves him at 18 life, which is 1 less than where he wants to be.
Yeah. And so, I like Joe letting this resolve. I think it's the kind of card that it's so powerful and in your face, and maybe if you're Joe and you played the old standard form, you're thinking, oh man, Sphinx Revelation, I should probably counter this.
Sure.
But it actually doesn't have a role. It doesn't really play much of a role in this particular game.
Correct. Your
right
opponent
now
already has so many cards in their hand, and you don't want to tap out on your own turn and expose yourself to whatever else they might have going on.
Well, Rev did resolve. Now here's a Windswept Heath. There's a snow-covered forest.
All right. Help us out here, Scott.
Yeah,
Show us what's going on.
Yeah, I want to see some action. That's all. I need to see something. Okay. Well, that's not exactly what I expected. Ellis Norn, yeah, it's easy cryptic command target. Counter that draw card. Ellis Norn, not so much for this matchup.
I don't see Ellis Norn getting the job done.
No. I think Joe actually could have just let that resolve.
Yeah, he didn't need to worry about that.
Draw a card, picked up a copy of Anger of the Gods. Misty Rainforest is the land. Tribelder going to come across here for 1. I think we're going to see Escape Shift here in a second. So long as he has 2 Valakuts in the deck. I actually don't even think he needs 2 Valakuts. I think he could actually still do it with just 1.
Yeah, as long as he has enough mountains in his deck.
Yeah.
Which he's been very deliberate about the lands that he searched for, so I can't imagine that the mountains are going to be a problem.
And here's Escape Shift. So this appears as though it's going to resolve. It's time to sacrifice some lands. 5, 6. 4, 5, 6. How about 6 mountains?
How about 6 mountains?
6 times 3?
Man.
That's on you.
You always hit me with the tough ones.
That's on you. Don't get this wrong.
Unbelievable.
All right, fair enough.
Is it at least 16?
It's definitely at least 16.
Okay.
So the number, I suppose, getting the math question right isn't that important. Dealing the damage is. Joe Russell going to win game number 1 here over Scott Kirkwood. Escape Shift up a game over Ascendancy Gifts. Scott, we need to see what you're up to here. Now, you know what's going to be even easier is addressing how he's going to sideboard.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Let's take a look at that. Find 3 Leyline of Sanctities, 2 Nature Claims, 2 Obstinate Bala, 2 Negates, a Cigar to Host of Herons, a Celestial Purge, a Terastodon, a Dispel, a Ghost Core, and Engineer Explosives. Given your mastery of the Ascendancy Gifts archetype, I'm sure you know what to do against Escape Shift here.
Well,
Is that
Off the top of my head here, with my wealth of knowledge, the Lee line of Sanctity is probably going to come in so that he can't be targeted with the Valakuts anymore.
sure?
I would expect the Negates to come in to try to fight the Counter Wars, help him resolve some of his spells, and the Dispel as well.
Yeah, a little counter magic, maybe Terrastodon to blow up some lands.
The Terrastodon is a much better creature to regrow than the Elesh Norn for
How
him.
dare you? Elesh Norn looked great that game.
It was slightly underwhelming for 7 mana.
Okay, all right. Well, on Joe Russell's side, 4 Obstinate Balos, 2 Ancient Grudge, 2 Rending Volley, 2 Dispel, a Crumble to Dust, a Shatter Storm, a Keranos God of Storms, an Anger of the Gods, and a Negate.
Now, this is kind of interesting. If he knows he has got to get the Birds of Paradise and Sylvan Caryatids off of the table, he might want the Anger of Gods in his deck.
Okay.
But there's not that many targets for a card like that. So we'll see how he feels about the Magic. The Negate, obviously, is easy add here.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that's the easy add, though. You know, Dispel, I guess when you see Gifts Ungiven in your opponent's deck, Dispel should probably just come in.
Yep.
And then Negate, so that's 3 counter spells that can come in, and the rest of the stuff is negotiable or just not useful. The Anger of the Gods is interesting, though. He did see Birds of Paradise. He did not see Sylvan Caryatid in those games, if memory serves. So it'll be interesting, because there are 4 of each in Birds and Sylvan Caryatids, and those are very important cards for Kirkwood's deck.
Yep.
So those are the options there for both players. And as they get ready here for game number 2, we will talk about our Season 1 schedule here on the SCG Tour. Of course, when we were in Las Vegas, that's where we watched Caleb Scherer win that Invitational and Brian Braun win our first Standard Open for Season 1. Then we went to Cincinnati, and eventually we'll crown a champion here. After that, we go to Charlotte next weekend for Modern. Andrew Boswell and Chris Van Meter will bring you that show, so look forward to that. Then we take a break for the Oath of the Gatewatch pre-release. You can go to go.starcitygames.com/pre-release for more information about that. Then we've got Atlanta, where I'll be joined by Patrick Sullivan for the Oath of the Gatewatch release weekend. We'll have some standard action there. Columbus, then the regional championships, Louisville, then Philadelphia, and then 3 more shows on the docket: Indianapolis, Baltimore, and that Season 1 Invitational in Columbus, where we'll do standard and modern with a standard top 8. And of course, for everyone who does enter our opens, that's our main event, you'll get the Kitchen Links playmat. It's simple. You sign up, you get one of these bad boys. They're free. Nothing too crazy going on there, and really, it's adorable.
They're cute. They're cats. They're playing. Milk spilled.
You have cats.
I do.
You probably want one of these playmats.
I don't.
Okay.
I mean, I do.
Okay. Like I said, free limited edition playmat with your entry in any Season 1 open as we get ready here for game number 2.
How great are release weekends?
They're a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun because it's just it's an anything can happen approach. New set. You want to see people work new cards in their decks, and hopefully some of them are pretty awesome.
Well, yeah, there's all the speculation and the hype around certain cards, and then you actually get to see the payoff.
Yeah, I'm always a pretty big fan of release weekends. And this new set, Oath of the Gatewatch, there's some new cool stuff going on. You got Planeswalkers, you have these Oath cards. We haven't seen everything yet. There's also new creature lands as well. That'll probably make the mana better in some decks and just change the way that some things are done. So that weekend in Atlanta is going to be definitely an interesting one. I expect a pretty healthy turnout and a pretty cool tournament.
I've been gaming for a little bit.
Do tell.
Playing Magic for a little bit in my life.
Okay.
And so I've made a lot of friends along the way.
Sure.
And a lot of them don't play much anymore.
Okay.
You know, growing up, you get a job, you have kids, married, whatever. A lot of them come out for the pre-releases still.
Yeah, for sure.
And I love it.
Yeah, pre-releases are always a blast, too. I'm a big fan of pre-release. I get to play in the Star City one a couple weeks from now, where it's going to be, like me, Brad Nelson, Jerry Thompson, Todd Anderson. It's going to be a cutthroat pre-release.
Soft field.
Yeah, it's going to be just a cutthroat pre-release. It's going to be a lot of fun. But I'm really, every time that's the thing, at least for me, is when a new Magic set comes out, if I'm not excited, then I know I'm supposed to be doing something else with my life.
Sure.
Like if I'm not like updating the spoiler every day and all that stuff to see what's come out and what kind of cool things are happening, then it's time to find something else to do. But it's still really fun for me.
Sure. And what I like about the pre-release is that it's so casual.
Yeah.
I open my seal pool, I lay it out in front of me, and I'll actually talk to everyone around me about it.
Yeah.
What do you think of this card? Oh, did you see this artwork?
Yeah.
Like check out this interaction.
Yeah, I think that's cool. It's just an awesome environment to play some Magic in.
When I go to a Grand Prix,
don't talk
a little
to me.
more serious.
Don't talk to me. Don't even look at me when I'm building my seal deck.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just let me get to work here.
I want to put like a wall up around me so no one can see my cards.
It's like at school where you put up your folder.
Yep.
And you just, that was my favorite. You had to take a test in a barricaded wall of folders. At least I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that's just bringing me back. Looks like Joe's going to take a mulligan here. Scott's pretty happy. There's also that high school we drove by yesterday. The biggest high school I've ever seen in my entire life here in Cincinnati.
It was not small.
It looked like a college campus.
Yep.
Here in Cincinnati, there's a high school where I guess they have 6th through 12th grade in, which has to be horrible for the 6th graders.
Well, it's probably divided up.
Well, sure, but you could just, so I assume it's divided up, but you could just run into some older people there.
It's a slightly intimidating person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And high school people are ruthless.
I bet they're all nice people.
Yeah, there's nothing going on. I hope everyone's nice to the younger
Hey,
6th
young
and
guy,
7th graders.
you can't find your classroom? Let me help you out.
Okay, yeah, that's the hope.
You know?
You're right. I do need some lunch money. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Very generous.
Yes. Looks like Joe's going to keep. Scribe to the top. We're underway here. Lumbering Falls is where Scott's going to start. Scott, we all demand fireworks here.
Got to get that thread onto the board early.
Apparently, this is a hex-proof way to go off with Jeskai Ascendancy. And he almost thought about searching for this with gifts, so. There's a Serum Visions. Draw a card, scry 2. Picked up a copy of Snow-Covered Plains. One on top, one on the bottom.
We were talking about Magic artwork yesterday.
Yes.
I'm a little disappointed in the snow-covered artwork from the original lands.
You're not a fan?
It looked very similar to the non-snow-covered lands.
Well, that's definitely true. That's definitely true. But I think they did a nice job in Cold Snap.
Yes.
That's the only good thing they did in Cold Snap. But
it was a strange set.
But I think the snow-covered lands actually look good.
Yeah.
That was a wonky time. Remember Cold Snap drafting?
Cascading? Was that the name of the ability?
Oh, no. It's not cascading. It's not surging either. My brain will work in a second. Oh, dear. Ripple.
Rippling.
There it is.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
There it is.
Yes.
Took me a second.
Some decks were a little better than others in the drafts.
Surging Sentinels. Rippling. Yep. Yes. Very, very skill intensive. But seriously, Jeskai Ascendancy. It appears that will resolve. And now Joe will draw. So if Joe didn't know what was happening before, he's probably got an idea of what's happening now, given that Jeskai Ascendancy is here.
Yeah, I mean, he saw his opponent draw a lot of cards last game, have a lot of lands in play.
Yes.
And all his opponent tried to do was cast Hellish Norn.
Hellish Norn, yeah. So that's not the general game plan of Modern, is 7-mana Hellish Norn. Here's another Jeskai Ascendancy. And that will trigger the first Jeskai Ascendancy. As whenever you cast a non-creature spell, creatures you control get +1/+1 till end of turn. Untap those creatures. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. So, time for Scott to draw and discard.
And when that card starts churning, it can get out of control very fast.
Simic Growth Chamber. Pick up a Plains, pass the turn back. It's very, very powerful. We haven't seen it in a little while. You know, there was a time where this thing ran rampant over Standard.
Yep.
It's kind of gone away now. There is a Legacy deck with this card. There's a Modern deck in combo with this card. There's an Island and a passing the turn. Cryptic Command if they're ready here for Joe Russell. We go over to Scott Kirkwood. We know he's got a Jeskai Ascendancy in hand. Also has a copy of Fate Stitcher. The question is, how does he want to sequence things here? And that's what he's trying to figure out right now. And can he sequence things through a Cryptic Command?
Yeah, that's the big question, is can he fight through a counterspell or two?
Already having Ascendancy out there is nice, of course. But this is where things do get a little bit difficult. And there's a Plains. Now there's another Jeskai Ascendancy. There'll be a trigger here.
And I don't think he needs this Ascendancy, but he's trying to bait out some counterspells from his opponent.
Fate Stitcher. Here's Cryptic. Counter 1. I thought we might see counter bounce.
Yeah, it's possible that Joe is just not familiar with this type of matchup at all. And so he doesn't realize the danger that he's in with a Fate Stitcher in the graveyard and the Ascendancy in play.
Yeah, and Simic Growth Chamber is a land, too.
Yep.
It's very possible that Joe Russell dies this turn. Unearth Fate Stitcher. Untap this. Tap it. So 2 blue and a green. And now we'll try to keep up. So, draw, discard another Fate Stitcher. This is going to get really bad. Now Serum Visions will resolve. Draw a card. Scry 2. Both cards going to go to the bottom. Untap here. Tap for a blue and a green.
Second Fate Stitcher.
Yep.
He's got a lot of mana available to him now.
No, it's not infinite, obviously, but there's going to be quite a bit.
Yeah, as long as he can keep casting spells, the Ascendancy will keep untapping the Fate Stitchers.
Yep. Here's Gifts Ungiven, which will untap the Fate Stitchers. That'll also trigger Ascendancy first, so draw and discard. And now Gifts is going to resolve. And so now I really want to see who's going to search up. There's a life in the loam. What else we got in here? He's bored the ley lines in. We had a feeling he would do that. Didn't get a good look at that one, but it looks like he's got a plan.
It's possible he doesn't really need any specific thing to win here.
Sure. A loam and just 3 lands. Okay. Chop him as you will. So loam and a land will go to the graveyard. The other 2 will go to the grip. Fate Stitcher is going to untap some stuff. Here's Flame Jab. That'll trigger Ascendancy.
And he's just going to get back the life from the loam.
Oh, so he's going infinite this way?
Yes.
All right, so...
Because the life of the loam is 2 mana, and he'll always have 2 mana to cast it.
Yep. So he's going to cast Loam.
And so he can do this as many times as he has cards in this deck divided by 3.
Okay.
And then just attack with the Fate Stitchers.
Or burn him out with the Flame Jab. Either way, yeah, he can just keep this going. This is an interesting, unique kill. Scott Kirkwood got a win game number 2 here over Joe Russell. Ascendancy Gifts ties it up against Scapeshift. For Joe, I think now that he's seen what Scott's deck can do, he's got a better idea what's going on.
Sure, yeah, and we saw that one misstep where he chose to draw a card off of his Cryptic command when he could have bounced the Ascendancy. And that one little mistake was just game over.
Yeah, the thing that comes down to, at least in my opinion, and this is part of the reason that players will play kind of unique creations in rogue decks like this, is your opponent doesn't really have an idea what's going on.
Yep, it gives you an edge.
So you have a propensity to kind of make a mistake like that where you're just, I didn't know that this was the thing that was happening.
Yep. Yeah, if he was familiar with it, he would have seen this. The Fate Stitcher was already in the graveyard, and the Ascendancy was on the board. He would have known that was coming.
Well, before we do watch game number 3 here, we'll talk about the StarCityGames.com holiday sale that's taking place. It ends today at 11:59 p.m. East Coast time. It's your last chance for great deals. If you're like Craig,
I can't wait to get home and see what my wife has for me.
Yeah, there should be a Black Lotus waiting in your stocking when you get back. If it's me, hopefully a Mystic Gate or a Windswept Teeth. Tough to say, but we've got stocking stuffers all month long, and it will end on Sunday, 11:59 p.m. East Coast time. So make sure to head over to StarCityGames.com. Last chance for great deals.
Yeah, take advantage of some discounts.
Perhaps that'll be your first tweet about your Black Lotus.
That would be quite the tweet.
Yeah, boom.
Guys, you won't believe this, but there was not a Black Lotus waiting for me when I got home.
So, okay, I'll ask you an interesting question, because we just saw a game here where Joe Russell did not know what his opponent was doing.
Sure.
And I would say lost as a result.
Yes.
Have you ever, do you have an experience that you remember where you played against a deck where you didn't know it was happening and made a mistake as a result, and then that deck ended up, it's kind of where the deck debuted and kind of broke out, and people broke it, and you were just like, I don't know what's going on, and then you died?
And not specifically. I have a slightly different story that's a little bit interesting.
Okay.
One of the Pro Tours was in New Orleans.
Okay.
Over Halloween.
Sure.
And so day one I did quite well in the format playing Tinker.
Okay.
And I went out that evening to participate in some of what New Orleans on Halloween has to offer.
Sure. I'm sure it's not much, but you found some things to do.
Yeah, I enjoy some of the culture of a beautiful city like that.
Okay, understood.
And the night ran a little bit late.
As it's known to do.
And I was feeling the effects of this in the morning.
Okay.
And I played very, very poorly the next day.
Understood.
And I remember someone writing an article later that just like, hey, how is Craig even on the Pro Tour? Like, he played so bad, and it's shocking that he didn't know what he was doing in the Tinker mirror. I remember specifically I had a kill switch, and I just messed it up, and I didn't lock my opponent out. And it just goes to show that there's so much more that goes into being a good Magic player than one game of Magic.
Well, this is definitely true.
You can put in a lot of preparation. You can find the right cards to play. You can play well. You can practice a lot. You can surround yourself with good players, and all of that contributes to being an effective Magic player. It's not just, hey, this one match where I wasn't 100%, I was a little under the weather, or I was very nervous on the future match area. We see players make mistakes, and I think often we're quick to say, this player is not that good, or he's going to regret this mistake, when really he might just be happy he made a deep run in the tournament, and he'll get better. He'll get more used to the feature match area, things like that.
I think that's definitely true. I've played in some tournaments where I didn't know exactly what my opponent was up to. I think of the Ichrid tournament that Mike Crum won.
Okay.
Where a lot of players did not know what was going on with this was basically the debut of Dredge.
Yep.
That weekend, and if you had not caught the memo, you did not have a deck for the weekend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I remember that tournament quite a bit.
Oh, you needed some hate in that event for the Dredge deck?
Yeah.
Or you were going to lose to the Dredge deck?
Yeah. I remember at that particular tournament, Jerry Thompson got paired against William Postlethwaite.
Okay.
In round number 3 or 4. They were both playing Dredge, and they just said, you want to draw? So we can play against everyone in the draw bracket who has no idea what's going on. Yeah, they did, and I don't think either of them lost a match on day one after that draw. So that was one of those tournaments where if you didn't have Withered Wretches and a bunch of graveyard hate, and furthermore, if you didn't know what the Dredge deck was, my goodness, it was not good. You were making a comedy of errors. Not your fault, because that deck is so obscure if you'd never seen Dredge before. See, Faithless Looting here going to discard a copy of Terastodon.
That's a big boy.
That's not small. Also discard a copy of Jeskai Ascendancy. And we saw there from Joe, just a slight misstep with that Cryptic Command. Wasn't sure exactly what Kirkwood was capable of, and died as a result. So we'll probably see some different lines of play here from Joe as he resolves a search tomorrow to search of a basic island.
So we would have to guess this guy has another copy of the Ascendancy in his hand.
I'm inclined to believe as much. I don't think he would discard one unless he had another one.
We saw just how powerful of a card that it is.
That card is risky. It's very, very, very strong.
Yep.
See, Joe did play his Steam Fence untapped. Took 2 to do so. Going to represent Cryptic Command and a bevy of other things here.
And it shows you what a tough job Wizards has when they make a card like Jeskai Ascendancy, and then you see this deck come out playing it. It's got to be so difficult for Wizards to wrap their head around what players are going to be able to do with a card like that.
Oh, I could never work in R&D.
No.
I could never do that job.
Every card would be a mistake.
Yeah, there's too much to take into account. I could never do it. I joke about, Skull Clamp and stuff like that, but I could never. I can't imagine what design and development is like.
Sure.
Because there are so many contributing factors, and I get to sit here and I get to play the game and talk about the game, and I'm comfortable on this side of things. Joe going to draw a card here. You saw Sylvan Carry added there from Kirkwood. Joe, plenty of lands over there, but it looks like his hand is actually quite land heavy. It looks like he might have a couple copies of Stomping Ground over there.
Yep. You usually don't want a whole lot of mountains to end up in your hand.
Yeah, that's the worrisome part right now. I think he's got 3 Stomping Grounds in his hand, so now the question is, of course, is if he even draws in Castscape Shift, is it lethal? This isn't something that comes up a lot with the deck, but it does happen on occasion. Kirkwood play a Misty Rainforest. See what comes next here for Scott. Just going to pass the turn back. So we're going to go Joe Russell's way. He'll untap that Breeding Pool. Picked up a copy of Visit Charm. Stomping Ground going to come down. I'll just pass the turn back.
And you see him paying the life there. He doesn't have to worry about his life total a whole lot. When his opponent goes off, he deals as much damage as he needs to.
There's a Hallowed Fountain. Perhaps we see something like a Gifts Ungiven here from Scott. He even played that Hallowed Fountain untapped. And there is Gifts. Well, it's a good thing for Joe that he picked up a copy of Is a Charm. I think he might use that here. Is Kirkwood able to fight back? Well, he's got a Dispel. The answer is yes. So Dispel will resolve. And now Gifts Ungiven will resolve. Are you a little surprised a card like Gifts, which has quite the tournament history, hasn't really seen much play in Modern, hasn't really done too much?
Yes and no.
Okay.
In a similar way that I'm surprised we don't see Ascendancy more, just because it's such a powerful card.
Okay.
But there's so many powerful cards in the format, and so many of the decks are so streamlined and efficient that you don't need a card like that.
I guess that's true. I think of Gifts during, its block constructed format, and it's seen some play in Vintage. I think it's restricted in Vintage still. I don't know the banner restricted Vintage list all that well anymore, but it was obviously quite powerful there. And, while it doesn't have the same tools to search for, it is just a really powerful card.
Yes.
So I'm slightly surprised that it hasn't seen more play.
Sure.
I'll say that. Maybe it's just a thing where I wanted to see more play.
4 mana is a lot.
Yeah.
In Vintage, getting 4 mana is very trivial.
It's fairly easy.
Yeah. But in Modern is a whole different animal. You play against an Affinity deck, or an Infect deck, or a Burn deck, and you're likely dead before you can resolve that card.
It's true. Well, there's your Gifts Ungiven pile. Snapcaster Mage and Negate are going to go to the graveyard. And Gifts Ungiven and Is It Charm go to the grip there for Kirkwood. So we head back Scott's way. So the interesting thing here is, we've seen these two play a couple of games right now. And Joe Russell has been repping Cryptic Command pretty hard all 3 games. Joe's hand right now is nonsense.
Yep.
It's a couple Stomping Grounds and a Lightning Bolt.
But this is what you do when you play Magic.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have options, you want to represent options.
Yeah.
Keep your opponent on their toes. Don't let them just windmill slam, his Jeskai Ascendancy into play.
So I like what Joe's doing here. He's posturing to the best of his ability, right? Shuffling cards back and forth. How many cards? 4. And they're really good. In reality, they're really not good. But, and unless a Gataxian Prove gets cast here, I'd be surprised if Scott can pick up on that. Looks like he might be considering casting Jeskai Ascendancy.
Well,
here.
It looks like he has double Ascendancy in his hand.
Okay.
So from Scott's side of the table, he's thinking, I'll play an Ascendancy. If it gets countered, I can just play another one.
Well, he's not going to play anything right now.
Well, he's going to be real patient. He got another Gifts Ungiven off of his first Gifts Ungiven. So he still has things to do.
There's a stomping ground from Joe. He'll just pass the turn back. Another Gifts Ungiven. Negate is going to counter that one. Again, Joe Russell's hand right now, a Lightning Bolt, Stomping Ground, and a Forest. That's it. Gifts is countered. And now Scott will sacrifice his Flooded Strand, fall down to at least 11, potentially lower than that. Just has to figure out what lands he's got out there.
And from a believability standpoint, Scott probably still thinks that Joe has a Cryptic Command in his hand.
Absolutely. He's been repping this 4-mana like the entire game. He hasn't countered anything too quickly. And from what we see here in the booth, he just hasn't given away any information about his hand. He's trying to represent as much strength as he can. I think he's done a nice job of that so far.
Unburial Rites, I believe.
Oh, hello. This deck can cast anything. There are no rules. Keep in mind, we have done a deck tech with Scott Kirkwood. We'll have that for you guys later today. This innovative Ascendancy Gifts deck. That's here is a Jeskai Ascendancy. Here's a Birds of Paradise. So it feels like this was the setup turn. And the next turn's the big turn.
Yep.
There's a Lightning Bolt to go after the bird. That'll die. Now we'll go Joe's way. I guess Joe's still in the spot now where if you draw Scape Shift, the game probably ends. Scott's at 11.
Yeah, he's kind of in your shoes here right now. He just doesn't draw the namesake card.
Yeah, it's true. I know what this life is like. We're going to go back Kirkwood's way. Sphinx's Revelation to draw. Is it time to go off here? See the Unburial Rites in hand. There's a Terracodon in the graveyard. Not sure how much of a role that plays now. And we're kind of guessing along with Scott here. Never really seen this deck in action before. There's an Ascendancy. That'll trigger. So untap, draw, discard. Picked up a Breeding Pool. Looks like Unburial Rites is the discard.
And now he gets the double draw discard.
Yep. And attempt to target Terracodon here with Unburial Rites. There'll be some triggers here.
And he also gets to double untap the wall.
Mm-hmm. Looks like there's some amount of mana floating here. Discard a Breeding Pool very quickly. And pick the Misty Rainforest, and we'll see what land he wants to discard here. There goes a Lumbering Falls. And now will this resolve? The answer is yes. Now, what are the targets with Nasty Terresti?
It's going to just be 3 blue sources from his opponent's side of the board, I would think.
So?
Possibly 3 mountains.
So this is a touch risky. You give your opponent 3 elephants.
Yep.
You're at 11.
Yep.
You're going to maybe be attacked to death in combination with Lightning Bolt and stuff like that.
Potentially.
But it actually looks like Scott's going to go after his own stuff.
All right, he's just getting big here.
This is him presenting lethal next turn.
Yes. That's interesting. I'm a little surprised by that play. I guess he doesn't have the resources he needs to just win with his combo.
There's Misty Rainforest.
And he's saying next turn I just need to cast 1 or 2 spells and then all of these guys are going to kill you.
Well, there's some 3/3s. There's a 9/9 Terracodon. Pass the turn back. Escape Shift on top of the deck. No, Snapcaster Mages. Time to look at the graveyard. There's an Izzet Charm down there.
Can Joe see those elephants coming, hiding behind that tree? That's the question.
Yeah, it does appear to be an elephant ambush taking place. Scott does have enough mana to be able to Snapcaster and an Izzet Charm, draw 2, discard 2.
Joe,
and then,
yep.
Or excuse me, Joe. And then,
yeah, I mean, he's certainly dead next turn, so he's got to just go digging here.
yeah. And even if I'm Joe, I don't feel comfortable finding Cryptic Command. You know, because if I find Cryptic...
Oh, the creatures can be just untapped again.
Yeah, with Jeskai Ascendancy,
yep.
So I don't even think that that's good enough. There's no guarantee my opponent has an instant, but I just would not feel it's good enough.
All right, here it is.
Yep, gonna flashback Izzet Charm. It's time to draw 2 and discard 2. I don't think he found very much of anything.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of lands.
Should change the name of this deck to Stomping Ground. Because he's got a lot of those.
Sure.
0 escape shifts. Absolutely none. Well, Snapcaster Mage gets the opportunity to block. Potentially. Because Scott does have a copy of Izzet Charm in hand. Also has a Sphinx's Revelation.
Well, even with one spell, the 3/3s turn into 5/5s.
That's true.
So jumping in front of the Terracodon still leaves 15 points coming through.
Temple Garden is the land that Kirkwood does find. And we saw quite a bit of flash and flare in game number 2. This one a little bit more straightforward, I would say. You're not going to find the Jeskai Ascendancy combo so much, but Jeskai Ascendancy did help filter some of the draws there for Kirkwood.
And to me, this game is more a failure of Joe's deck. Not to take anything away from Scott's win here.
Sure.
But Joe had lots of time to find escape shift. Didn't happen.
I think we're going to see that Izzet Charm in just a moment. Yes, we will. 2 damage to Snapcaster Mage. That'll trigger Ascendancy twice. That'll give everything +2/+2. It'll untap the Sylvan Caryatid as well. That'll also allow Scott to draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards. So just a few things going to happen here. So now Resolve here. Copperline Gorge, that's down. Serum Visions, that's down. Izzet Charm resolves. Red Mana floating. Not going to use that. Just going to attack you for the win, hopefully. Lumbering Falls looking to block by all means. Yeah, that's going to be 15.
Yeah, and Scott's saying these still kill you.
Yep. And that's going to do it. Scott Kirkwood's going to win this match over Joe Russell 2-1. Ascendancy Gifts is going to take care of Escape Shift. And the brew here, it's going to surprise you, only 1 copy of this in the day number 2, is 9-2 here in Cincinnati. So, congratulations to Scott Kirkwood. Again, we will have a deck tech with him for you guys at the probably the middle end portion of our 6 rounds of Swiss coverage.